Hey guys, how you going? Hope you're all doing very well. This afternoon I'm going to be doing another movie review. This movie is a horror film from Norway, Norwegian language English subs, released in the year 2003, directed by Paul Oe, and this film is called Vildmark. So Vildmark is about 5 Norwegians that go into the wilderness for a team building retreat. So they get to this cabin and they start to unpack their things and they discuss what they're going to do. So what they're going to do, they're going to actually team up and make this TV show, and this wilderness is going to be the location. But they have to try and really bond together in order to make this work. And so as the days pass, they start to realize very strange things are occurring. Now, one of those strange things is that there are noises out in the woods, and there's also a tent that's by the lake that seems to be abandoned. And so they don't know who owns this tent, but they're going to try and find out who it is. But in order to find out who it is, they actually have to uncover a hidden truth behind this lake that actually might put them in the firing line. So whether or not they are in fact in danger is something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now, my thoughts on Vildmark. This is a Norwegian horror film, so for that I was a little bit skeptical. Now, I do love Norwegian film, but Norwegian dramas in particular, because the Norwegian horror films, there have been some good ones, but there have been some pretty bad ones too. So Vildmark was actually a film that inspired a sequel, and so for that I thought, alright, well, there's a little bit of popularity behind this. And it also had Kristoffer Jonner, who is a fantastic Norwegian actor. He plays one of the lead figures in this film, and he was also in another Paul Oe film called Hidden, that aka Skuld. Now, Hidden was a psychological horror film that I reviewed a long time ago, and I thought that one was serviceable. It was a little bit generic, but I thought, okay, well, it was really well made. And so Vildmark was a film that I was expecting was going to be another well-made experience, but was it going to be an experience to really match it up with Norwegian films from different genres? So not knowing exactly what to expect, but holding on to the expectation that this was going to be a very good film, I came away from this movie not necessarily disappointed, because the expectations weren't very high, but somewhat underwhelmed by a film that I definitely thought deserved a television sort of release instead of a cinematic release. This is a film that did inspire a sequel, but ultimately it didn't really inspire me as a viewer and as a lover of Scandinavian cinema in general. So I wanted to love the film, but if I'm being brutally honest, I just don't think it had the punch. It didn't have that feeling that, okay, this is going to last in the memory. It's just a movie that's going to wither away and become another addition to the films that you could probably pass up the opportunity to watch. And that's something I'll go into a little bit later. But what I liked about Vildmark is that it is a very creepy film, and it does use the setting of the woods to a satisfactory level. It reminded me of the Blair Witch Project, so it's not an incredibly unique film, but I still thought it used its setting to a level where I thought it was creepy enough. The sufficient sort of level of horror that the movie possesses in a psychological sense, I thought was fairly decent. I thought as though the acting was fairly good, and the cinematography, it is very different. It's a cheaper looking film, so that can work against it. But I thought as though for what the budget this film had, it did an okay job at producing what was a serviceable horror film. So there are some fairly decent set pieces, and I thought that there was trouble around the corner. And so there is a level of suspense and that psychological discomfort that Paul Oe managed to create not only in this film, but also his other movie called Skuld, Hidden. I thought that had a very strong psychological approach. But unfortunately, where Vildmark falls short is where Hidden fell short. And that is through the necessity of recycling stuff that's been done before. And what I mean by that is that you have seen these set pieces in previous films. You have seen the ending to this movie. I thought the ending was very weak. It was really predictable, and I just thought as though the twist that the film has was put in there for the sake of it. And so the twist didn't make a lot of sense, and unfortunately that is something that is par for the course as far as horror films are concerned, that you throw in a twist and you don't see it coming, but you don't see it coming for a very good reason, is because it doesn't really make the sense that it really needs to actually make it a satisfying sort of conclusion. And so because it doesn't really make sense, I just thought as though the twist was thrown in there in desperation to actually make a film last in memory. But because it's so confusing, I just thought to myself, I don't really want to revisit this movie to try and piece together together exactly how this conclusion came about, because it just doesn't have that replay value. I thought the movie had that a strong feel of made for television. The soundtrack, I thought, all right, this is an episode in a TV series, and so it just didn't really have the inspiration to make a cinematic film. I don't really know, to be honest, how this movie got the okay to make a sequel. The sequel is actually of a much higher budget, and it actually feels like a cinematic film, whereas this movie, I can appreciate the fact it's very, very creepy. I thought as though there were some scenes that were kind of scary, but there is a strong level of predictability where you can really play and gain control of the film, and that does defeat a lot of what makes a great horror film. And what makes a great horror film is uncertainty, and unfortunately there is a lack of uncertainty because of the fact that, as I said, it has recycled stuff that it takes inspiration from. And so you do need, you can have a great atmosphere, you can have a great psychological element, but you have to have something that plays off that, and unfortunately nothing really does. I thought the acting was okay. Christopher Jonah, he plays a very standard character, and I don't like it when you got these big name actors who are playing characters that anyone could really play. I never really gravitated to anyone in the film. I didn't really like anyone, and I just didn't really care about the situation. I thought the tent and the idea of who owned this tent, I thought was creepy and curious, but unfortunately nothing really develops in a way where I thought as though everything was utilised. And so that to me was the biggest issue with Vilmark. It's not a terrible film by any means, but unfortunately it's a movie that wants to replicate popular films but just doesn't make a shadow of its own to a degree where I would go out there and say go and see this film. So if you don't see Vilmark, you're probably not missing out on much. I just thought as though, this is a film that does have accolades, it does have a following, but unfortunately, if I'm being brutally honest, I just couldn't jump aboard this film, and unfortunately, it's not coming recommended. So overall, for Vilmark, I was left very underwhelmed. I'm only going to give this one 2 stars. Alright guys, that's it for my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, keep watching movies, and I'll see you later. Bye.